Welcome everybody to the Tribal Leadership Panel. For this session, we have tribal leaders from across the Midwest. First up, we have Chairman Kevin Dupey from the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. Chairman Dupey was elected in 2016 and has served as an elected position since then. In his capacity as a chairman, he has committed to improving the lives of band's 4,200 citizens and overall community of 7,300 Indian peoples who rely on the services that are provided by the band in the region. He is actively involved in the Fond du Lac community and has studied the band's treaties with the United States, along with the tribal law and principles of Indian law that affect tribal rights and responsibilities. Through all his work, Chairman Dupey has been guided by the teachings of Anishinaabe grandfathers of humility, bravery, honesty, wisdom, respect, truth, and love. Chairman, thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kevin Dupey, the Fond du Lac Bench Chairman. I'd first like to say a shout out to the other tribal leaders are there. Frank, I haven't seen Frank for a while. It's good to see you, even though we're on Zoom. And Chairman Wiggins, great to see you. I don't know exactly how we want to run this panel, or is it just introductions for right now?
Well, I have just given your introduction, Chairman. So you are allowed to give your presentation any way you wish. And then once you're done, let me know and we'll transition from there and I will introduce the next speaker after that.
How much time do I have? No, I'm just playing.
10 to 15 minutes. You've got plenty of time, sir.
Again, I appreciate it. It's great to see everybody. I think biggest thing that I know of for MTERA is what we're looking for is energy, climate, and in our environment principles. So I'll try to be brief and concise as the best as I possibly can. Renewable energy, it's a thing that exists with us right now in this time of age, and it's imperative that we move in that direction with that, whether that be solar for reservations, and everybody. Doesn't mean that you have to be native to do this, but it's something that needs to be done across the board throughout the country and the world. I think that when we look at renewable energy and we look at the climate, I believe there is a connection with that. What we look at different things, and I'm going to bring up a little brief story that we were taught, is that when we look at wild rice, and we know it's a staple crop, maybe that's the wrong word to use, a staple food that our people have relied on for centuries. And one of the issues with it where we live right now, we don't have as many muskrats as we used to. And I believe this has something to do with climate change and other things that break off or a residual from climate change. Is that when you look at a muskrat house, it doesn't have the rice plants on the house. What it means is they don't take the rice and build their houses with it. They use the bulrush and everything that exists with that. So we're always taught that they're the natural cultivator of the rice. And we don't have as many muskrats as we used to. And most of our people here don't trap the muskrats. So we're still trying to figure out why the muskrats aren't here. If you go farther south in Minnesota, where we're at here, you can go into the metro area and you can see marshes that are filled with muskrat houses. And so one of the things behind that muskrat is that we take a look at, we can determine what our weather is going to be like in the winter based on the size of the muskrat houses. They prepare for winter, and they do it in a manner and show the size of their homes, the houses that they built. But they're a natural cultivator of the rice. And there is a direct tie relationship with the muskrat or wajush and the minomen, which is the wild rice. And it has to do a lot with climate change. It probably has to do a lot with the things that are in the air and the deposits that go into our water and our watersheds. And when we take a look at our environment where we're at and what we need to secure for our environment is hugely relied on our people. And a lot of people don't understand why bands and tribes fight the way they fight or argue the way they argue based on environment and principles of that such. It's because it's part of an entire being. We're all part of it. We're part of everything that grows out there. If we lose our water and we're not have the ability to eat fish and things in that manner, then I lose one of my arms. If I can't go into the woods and gather plants and medicinal things in that manner, I lose a leg. If I'm not able to go hunt animals, then I lose an arm. And so when we take a look at that, the things that we can't do anymore, or we're gearing towards that, then I lose another leg. Now I cease to exist as a human being. And with us, a human being is an Anishinaabe. And so it's imperative what we do with our environment, how we look at it, and the things that we need to do for the future of our unborn. We always get our knowledge from the past, the elders and the ones who came before us. We deal with the present on a daily basis to look what we can do better and to understand that what they secured from us from in the past are people who came before us, the ones who signed the treaties, that we're obligated to them for today, but most importantly, to secure a future in a way of life of our unborn. And so it's complete tied in together with nature in itself and based on natural law. I think where we're at right now, where the tribes are, is we're in a very unique situation. And it's because of the lands that we were forced to live in that we've been able to manage and establish a working order with the resources that we have. And everybody wants our resources. We can sit back and say that's not true, but we know that it is true. And so we have to find ways and we have to defend our borders on a daily basis to stop the encroachment of sovereignty. And I think one of the biggest pieces to that is how we live as Anishinaabe people. We live in a time today that we have houses and everything else, and we're able to evolve just like everybody else. But we need to take a look at our environment and the close relationship with climate change. And I believe that we're on the forefront and we have the ability and opportunity to move forward faster and in a more proficient way than others. And by having groups like MTERA and the collective principles of the tribes in the Midwest and tribes throughout the country in general, to look at what we can do for one another, what we can do for our individual bands, and most importantly, what we can do for Indian country as a whole. So Fond du Lac, we have solar panels. We're looking at a microgrid. We're looking at substations for our electricity, carbon sequestration. And these are things that we take a look at and people question what we do and how we do it. But the reality is, as tribes and in simplicity is we're sovereign and we have the ability to exercise that principle. And so when we do these things in that manner, it's about the future of our people, only for our future of our people. And I think that when we look at that and the world looks at us and our neighbors look at us, what can we do collectively for one thing, because this is something that we can't do on our own. And one of the things that we have conversations about here is that when ordinances and regulations are put in law at a level that's up here, the problem with that, or one of the problems, is that we're not guaranteed that's carried to the boots on the ground. So if we're trying to get to reach a point of 2055 or 2030, whatever the time frame is, to reduce the carbon footprint to 50% and then and move forward from that to reduce the carbon footprint to 100%, the reality becomes like that we can't do that unless everybody is part of that. And that goes down to the local municipalities, that goes down to the individual communities, and that goes down to the individual homes. And people have to be part of that. And I just want to bring this up real quick. It was interesting during COVID when you took a look at how the economics were and what was open during COVID. People had the ability, because their jobs were shut down and they were staying home, to fix up their houses. We can take a look at the stores that sold things like Menards and Lowell's and all these other places, that the lumber shortage came out because people were out doing things when they had the ability to do them, and not really knowing and understanding that what you're doing by implementing gardens and what you're doing by doing this, and you're working with the environment, but we're looking at a piece that everybody should be doing this. And myself, I never planted anything in my life, but during COVID, I had the ability to be home and I started planting in buckets. And I got to the point where I had too many peppers and too many tomatoes that I didn't know what to do with. But the reality is that now that COVID's over, going back to doing the same thing. And not everybody has the ability to do that, because now we're back into the working reality that we have to be at work at 8 to 5 and the principles of that. So we're not doing that, but we left a footprint in COVID. If this makes any sense to everybody, a footprint has been left during COVID, that this is the direction that we as people, as human beings, need to go. And to get to that point and continue to have in the gardens, to continue to plant, to continue to make them things matter, where we have the ability to change. I don't believe we have the ability to reverse in a manner that people think of global warming. We have ability to change its structure and evolve from that. One of the things we take a look at that is resiliency is that if everything were to change today and the climate were to go into a point where everybody is worried about it, everybody has the ability to move north. Everybody has the ability to go somewhere else except us. This is our home, the reservations that we live in. And we will be resilient on what we do. We will take a look at our climate that exists there. We will take a look at our vegetation. What trees are going to be compatible? What trees are going to be able to regenerate to what we need to do? And these are the things that Fond du Lac is doing, to take a look at it, that we know that we can't leave. This is our home, and we're going to do everything that we possibly can to look at that through plant life, through water, through energy in itself, and establishing different types of energy. But sometimes to establish different types of energy, we're going to need help in a collaborative principle. And so I think that our neighbors are part of it, and we need to be working with them in a manner to get to where we need to go. But I think the tribes in general hold, I'm not going to use the term secret, I wish I could throw a word out there. The tribes hold a past that needs to be brought out into the present to move into the future, that has shown that to be here for ice ages and the resiliency of these people, of the original inhabitants of the land, have the ability to show what we can do to survive, to show that resiliency principle that exists there with all indigenous people and with all people in general, as to where we want to go into the future. And we can't ignore anymore that climate change is here, global warming is here, the points of what we need to do to move forward. And natural law is one of the biggest keys to that, to take a look at what has been done, how are these people lived throughout time, and say what can be absorbed, what can be taken in. We need the teachings of these people, these original inhabitants of the land. We need the teachings, we need the understandings of some of the things that are simplistic and very, very, very simple. I seen one time that in Africa, that they would build a pit, and they would have this pit with a rubber lining or bladder, which, if that's the best word to use, and they would fill it with waste, feces, and things like that. And they would have little nipples and tubes on the end of this bladder that would take it and move it, the methane gas, to their hut with a little burner, and they would turn it on, and that's how they were established that fuel to cook their food, boil water, what's needed. In Indian country, in the rural areas that we live, most of our systems that we have are individual mound systems, individual septic systems. Some are lucky to have a communal system, but right now we don't have that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is the simplicity of what was done in Africa and other third world countries. Are we at the same point to take some of this and use it to our advantage, instead of burning it into where it's supposed to, or where it's been going? We live on large bog swamps. and we all understand what's under bog is methane. And I might be way out there, I might be all wet on what I'm talking about right now, but them are the things that I look in, and I don't look at it as blinders, I look at it as something that's wide open. And to take a look at what can we do within our own communities to sustain our communities, but also hopefully at the end of the day, people can take a look at it and say, hey, this is something that we can do at a larger scale. But again, to reach that larger scale, we need collaboration. We need to use our neighbors. And the other thing too is some tribes and bands don't have the resources to do that. So at that federal level, at that level that's needed for that consultation, is to making sure that the resources and that revenue is turned down so the bands and tribes have the ability to sustain that self, but also control their own destiny under that manner. And a lot of tribes and bands aren't in the same position as everyone else. And we need to look out for them. And that's why I believe that the collaboration principle and how important MTERA is and other organizations are there, that you have the ability to have all different tribes and bands looking at the same perspective. And I believe that we all understand that global warming is here, climate change is here, renewable energy has to happen for us to move into the future. I hope what I've talked about, people can understand. And I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just like a human being, just like everybody else. But I do know that the ones who came before us allowed us to be here, whether the decisions they made were right, wrong, or different, but they had foresight to ensure that our people are going to be here for the future. And now it's our job to ensure that our unborn have a future and continue to move forward with that. So with that, I'd like to say miigwech to everybody and thank you for their time. Aho.
Miigwech kaigin. Thank you, Chairman. Next up, we have Mike Wiggins. Mike Wiggins Jr. is the chairman of the Bad River Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa. Chairman Wiggins is also a major advocate for the conservation of natural resources. Before he became the chairman of the Bad River Band, he served as a conservation officer for the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, also known as GLFWIC. Today, he's a vocal leader in the protection of the Pinocchio Hills and maintaining safe groundwater. In 2019, Chairman Wiggins was named an outstanding alumni of the University of Wisconsin-Superior. Floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Charlie. And it's an honor to be here with MTERA today. Thank you, Chairman Dupey, for sharing some of those thoughts. And I always enjoy listening to tribal leaders, and they get the mind going into different places like that. And I appreciate that. I'd begin my talk by just saying that I've always subscribed to a line. I think it was attributed to a gentleman named Paul Davis from the Oneida Nation, but the quote that I've always carried with me for many years is Paul Davis said, "You can't talk about tribal sovereignty until you can feed your own people," and I've loved that quote. Have really worked to develop a food sovereignty realm in Bad River that really gets to the heart of how do we feed our own people. Off of some of those base layers, we ask ourselves, we have traditional food systems that are thousands of years old. How do we relearn our connection to these old traditional food systems, and how do we get our community and our families and children to participate in those, whether that be spearfishing or maple syrup making or picking wild onions in the river bottoms in the springtime, or fiddleheads. You can take that as far as you want to go. And but I was thinking this morning along the lines of MTERA kind of messaging out to me. You can't talk about sovereignty until you can power up your own people. And it was a little play on Paul Davis's quote. Because that's also been in my mind and has been a part of our work here in Bad River as we think about energy resiliency, and we think about the possible changes that are coming ahead of us, like the chairman from Fond du Lac was alluding to with the future. In 2016, Bad River had a 1 in 1,000-year flood event, and it knocked out every highway and culvert and railroad crossing, and from the top of the ridge above us where the metallic mineral body is, and where we resisted mining on down through our reservation out into the big lake, the waters in that storm system event blew out almost all of our man-made infrastructure and flooded areas, and it rerouted rivers and turned what were brush-soaked creeks into open canyons of whitewater rapids. It completely redefined our landscape. But one of the things it did to us in Bad River is it turned Odena into an island, which was amazing. It was just this huge paradigm shift, and it knocked out power in the region for many days. We've seen our wastewater treatment realm went offline. Our clinic was down. Our tribal government was struggling to assess, tribal members that were on oxygen, that were on different types of electrical life-saving medicinal mechanisms, and so with that event came this huge wake-up call that we need to start taking care of ourselves in a better way when it comes to power and the ability to keep some of our governmental mechanisms online. So that paved the way to strategic planning, to us taking some really incredible steps to reassess who we are and how we're going to move into the future. Energy resiliency and independence is at our core, where we want to try to get to by 2030. And similar to what the chairman had already said, we've been moving with solar installations and microgrids and things like that. But we also took a look at some of the right-of-way companies that are currently sending energy products through our reservation. We made some bold decisions and crafted with the help of some of our attorneys, regulatory codes and laws that set up taxation systems on things like Enbridge, TransCanada, Northern Natural Gas, Bayfield Electric, Xcel Energy. All of these corporations were running right-of-way, we're running energy products through right-of-way corridors within our reservation. Historically, when I think of all of them, we received pennies on a dollar over decades, over 60 years. And so our regulatory codes claim back our sovereign realm. We claim back every square inch, every square foot of our right-of-way corridors, and we exacted a toll. In addition, we created permitting processes and things like that had a toll, it had a price to pay, because there's a huge administrative cost, and there is an impact to our environment, and there is low-grade stress, or we could say public nuisance, to some of these right-of-way and corporations operating on our lands. And that's been generating some revenue, but it also sent us through a boomerang kind of mindset process of again, reassessing who we were as far as it comes to a sovereign, as far as it comes to energy, and as far as it comes to our hospitality to some of these corporations. And so, the elephant in the corner for me talking is that we chose to oust Enbridge off our reservation because of the neglect, the failing pipe that is Line 5 that is threatening, as we speak, our river, Bad River, and threatening some of the Denemy Creek watershed areas. We want them off our reservation, and that's currently in an adversarial litigation battle. But the counter to that is that we're moving towards who we are as Anishinaabe, who we are as water protectors, carrying a 7th generation vision, looking way into the future through climate change lenses, and seeing ourselves out of the clutches of fossil fuel oligarchs that control kind of, Turtle Island right now. I kind of tongue-in-cheek smile and I say, we want to kind of be like some of those motherland countries, the founding fathers of America, Scandinavian, like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, unbelievably progressive countries that are paving the way right now for the world in renewable energy initiatives and sustainability. We want to get like that. And to do that, we're going to have to transition out of the fossil fuel clutches. Well, we're trying to do that by Elston Enbridge, but we're reinvesting in who we are and who we need to be to move forward. And so I really enjoyed Chairman Dupey's comments about the Ice Age, because we have been here for millennia. We are ancient people in our ancestral land, and for thousands of years we existed before the arrival of some of these social constructs like quote unquote capitalism. And so when money goes away, like it kind of did during that shutdown during the pandemic there, we have to renegotiate and relearn and figure out how we're going to take care of ourselves into the future. We want to be around for another 1,000 years. And so we take that ancient memory, we take that seventh generation vision, we remember in the moment that we're temporary, and we're doing our best to make decisions that really speak well for what our babies who are still on the way are going to need when they arrive, whether that be 20 years from now or 100 years from now. And water resources, energy resiliency, being able to harness, some of the powers of air, land, water, and fire, being able to harness some of those powers at an economy of scale that translates and powers up individuals is kind of what we want to get to. And I love the Chairman Dupey's reference to how, when it comes to the vision of sustainability and renewables, that it's got to come down through the tribal government. It needs to be collaborated through our partners and allies and surrounding municipalities, but that it has to trickle all the way down and come back through our families and individuals, all sharing that vision of wanting to get better and more sustainable. And I see the benefits, like whether that be the tangible arrival of electricity at our fingertips, or maybe financial dividends in terms of saving energy because we're harnessing the sun and rolling meters backwards. Whatever that looks like in terms of benefit or energy, one of the challenges is not to just think tribally as a governmental entity, as a governmental sovereign, but to really think about that through the eyes and the public well-being of like one of our single moms living in our communities that doesn't have a car yet, that is working at the casino and also taking classes at our tribal community college here. What about her? And what about her energy needs and the ability to try to get them, good, clean, affordable, and economical energy? That is the challenge, to make sure that, I hate the word trickle down, because I always think of trickle down economics, but how do we pass on the work that we do so that it really makes that impact into the lives of our people as individuals? And those are the things that we're trying to think proactively and send our minds around as we move forward. And this guy with a really cool name here in Bad River, his name's Daniel Wiggins. He's been an awesome leader on the energy front, and I try to keep up with him and learn from him, and he's got some good people here in Bad River that, as a team, we're really trying to push some of these things. Food sovereignty, sustainable and renewable energy, the local economy, utilizing revenue generators that align themselves with our Anishinaabe values. Those are some of those things that we want to try to keep in mind as we make those mindful decisions in the moment about the future and remembering the thousands of years of Anishinaabe that helped get us here. So I'll kind of just say that much and reserve some time for our other panelists there. So miigwech.
Miigwech kayagin. Thank you, Chairman Wiggins. Last up, we have Frank Cloutier. Mr. Cloutier currently serves as a member of the Tribal Council of the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe of Mid-Michigan. He had previously served on the Tribal Council as Tribal Chief from December of 2015 to December of 2017, then as Executive Tribal Council Secretary from December 2017 until December of 2019. Both administrations enjoyed rapid growth and expansion with their economic development prosperities. When not in Tribal Council, Frank serves as the Public Relations Director and Legislative Assistant to his tribal community. Mr. Cloutier has served his tribal community for over 23 years, representing all tribal efforts on a number of executive boards. He is the past chair of the Great Lakes Bay Alliance, the past president of the Midwest Alliance of Sovereign Tribes, and Central Michigan McLaren Hospital Board, as well as many other local governmental boards. Mr. Cloutier's passions are treaty work and protecting the sovereignty of tribal communities. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bonjour to my relatives. Nice to be with you again. Kevin, as always, good to see you again. I was asked to talk with you folks today about an exercise in sovereignty that we enjoyed some years ago. The Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe has a satellite reservation in Standish, Michigan, called Saguenay. And we have a small economic development there called the Eagles Landing Casino and Resort, a casino and hotel, I should say. We also have another one here in the Mount Pleasant area. However, we found ourselves in a bit of a challenge back in 2016 because it was a very underdeveloped, low populous area, and services were expensive. So the tribe started looking at independence. We started considering our sovereignty and what we could do. And we realized being uniquely recognized as a federal tribe, we were able to kind of clear a path for our opportunities with electricity. So we reached out to different agencies, FERC and MISO, and started talking to them about what we could do. And this idea came along because we were also looking at not only how could we provide enough energy for our gaming operation over there, but we have a small satellite reservation with several community members, and we were having challenges with fresh water. So two lines leading along the same path kind of opened our eyes to what the privilege of our sovereignty could do for us. And we started working with the state of Michigan because we had a water authority out there, the Saginaw Midland Water Authority, that was pulling water out of the Great Lakes, filtering it and fluoriding it and providing it as a municipal water source. And it went right through our reservation. It was a 76-inch water main. So we asked how we could become part of that authority. That authority was built in the 1950s. Of course, then they didn't consider the Native American populations. So they just considered us part of what they had to do. So it took some measurable communication to make people aware of the fact that as a standalone, sovereign, federally recognized tribe, we were a municipality unto itself, and we'd have a right to be written into that water authority. And that opened the floodgate for us to look at doing our own substation. We all know that we're all under the heels of those who provide us services such as water, sewage, electricity, those staples that are needed. But once again, we could be looked at as a municipality. We could be looked at it as an electrical authority. So we worked on that. We actually worked with a transmission company to help us build that pathway to be able to create a substation that was going to generate enough power to sustain not only our tribal community, but our gaming operations over in Standish. We built a water and a wastewater treatment plant when working with outside resources was not economical for us. And today we stand independent. Consumers Power is our power provider in this area. And there's many other ones in Michigan, DTE, there's a lot of private ones. But of course, you know, those companies are large companies and we're large flat users. So, you know, they very much enjoyed our business without any sense of obligation toward customer service. We were always fighting with them over our reservations, boundary rights, and who had the abilities to manage easements. In growing this standalone substation under the guise of our sovereignty and the fact that we were an organized government that could move forward and create an authority, we were able to back them out of their transmission within our reservation properties. We were able to back them out of those easements on our properties and exercise our right as a sovereign community to develop freely and give us freedom to regulate within our own grounds and within our own reservation. Today, we're actively working on a water and wastewater area for a non-tribal community that neighbors our reservation over there. And it looks like we're getting into the municipal water and wastewater business. I have full expectation that we will be doing that at our substation too, which underwrites about half of the savings on that underwrites is about half of the operation cost of our water and wastewater treatment facility over there. So it's a wonderful program that we're hoping to bring back here to the larger reservation in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and be able to exercise our sovereignty that way. And I very much appreciate the chairmen, both of who spoke of alternative energies, the possibilities of what we can do. You know, we have the opportunity to look at every one of these. You know, we can hunt and gather solar, just like we did fish and sweetgrass, and still do today. The sustainable part of our life has always been the same, no matter where you go and unique to Indian country, but it is also augmented and we can gather those other things. And it's my hope not to only be able to do this on reservation territory, but we have aboriginal territory. Ours goes from the Mackinac Bridge on down to Detroit and east to Lake Huron. It's a large area for our tribe's people. And to be able to exercise our rights within our aboriginal treaty territories would be amazing. And I would offer anyone who would like to know how to do this or need some assistance with standing sovereign in your utility services, I beg you, please reach out, contact us. We would be more than willing to help with that. We have an energy desk established. And I hope to soon be large enough to be purchasing and brokering energy for our tribal community and for those partners regionally. As was mentioned, I'm part of a regional effort here in the mid-Michigan area, 4-county region, which takes in a large portion of our aboriginal territory. And we understand when we're fighting for our rights as sovereign tribes, we can rely on our business partners and our community partners that understand and appreciate and celebrate our unique sovereignty with us. So I will end it there and allow for some time for questions, if you will. So miigwech for the opportunity.
Miigwech again. Thank you very much. Yes, this is a perfect opportunity for questions. We do have a question here. How can we contact you, sir, Frank, Mr. Cloutier, for the energy desk that you just mentioned?
I'm putting my email address, if I can spell my last name appropriately, in the chat for you folks to catch up on. Reach out to me and I can kind of put you in contact with Kevin Blazer Barry Scott, and myself, a number of individuals who can help with your efforts, or at least share what we've done.
Let's see, do we have any other questions? I'm looking at the chat. And I guess this is a question for Jake, our host. Will the materials be made out and sent out to the group? And do you know if there's a way to copy the chat materials? Apparently there is difficulties in copying the text.
We will look into that, but we will absolutely be posting the recordings of these sessions and emailing them out to all attendees.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the questions and answer. Gentlemen, do you have questions for each other?
I don't know if I have a question. I would say I'm more of a comment to everybody. And I think a lot of the conversations are the same when we take a look at, so we can see that the commonality exists with it. And in any country, it's always there within that manner. I think when we take a look at some of the things, when we take a look at infrastructures and things, that we all have something to offer. And this communications or the networking is the key to that. We talked about solar, we talked about offsetting a cost based on solar with casinos and stuff. We're in the same position. We do the same thing. One of the other things too is that it was brought up that we want to make sure that if anything ever happens again, that we're not going to be put in the position that we are or that we were during COVID. And, you know, Fond du Lac at that point in time established a growing dome. We have our own crop fields that we work with. We established a large root cellar, but we also built a cannery to that principle during COVID to get ready and look at ourselves. So how long is this going to extend out? And so I think each individual reservation and tribe, they have their own outlook on how they're going to do things. But when you take a look at it collectively, there is a commonality between all of that. And I think the biggest thing is that retention, or to retain who we are as a people and our way of life. And I think that that's the key to all of this. And no matter who makes the comments, when you really look at their statements, that's where it brings it back to. And the principles of sovereignty. And Frank brought that up quite a bit, but it is the reality of it. To exercise that sovereignty, how we feel that we should do it, to control our own destiny and not have somebody else control our destiny for us, but to control our own destiny, continue to work together, have the communications, the networking, and find the commonalities amongst all of us that we can work to as we've done in the past. Before the inception or the arrival of European, we had commerce. We had commerce that existed. We had government structures. We had clan systems. We did everything that we do today, but in a little different perspective. And so we haven't lost that. We just continue to move forward with it and evolve like everybody else. I just want to make that general comment that as long as we can maintain the communications amongst each other and maintain that networking, we can overcome a lot of obstacles. And I think by coming together, the ones who have done something, it helps for a tribe or band who's starting off not to go through the same obstacles or the red tape. We learn from one another to make this a more smoother transition. So with that, miigwech.
Miigwech.
Yeah, Charlie, could I make a comment quick?
Yes, please. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, the thing that I would add to that too is that as individual sovereigns, there is one realm that transcends and maybe pierces the veil on autonomy of individuals. And that is as an example, the 11 tribes that comprise GLFWC, the Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission, really strong Lake Superior Chippewa coalition that is rooted in our treaties and the usufructuary aspects of hunting, fishing, gathering. When I think about ceded territory from Minnesota extending across Wisconsin into what is now known as the state of Michigan, ceded territory is this broad swath and expanse of Northwood forest. And as much as there's hunting, fishing, and gathering from a intertribal lens, I'm always intrigued by the prospects of intertribal cooperation under our treaty rights. And as an example, how that relates back to energy, I would just say that gathering firewood, to heat our homes, to light our wigwams and all of that goes back millennia. We lost the lumber portion of our treaty rights case when our rights were reaffirmed through litigation. I think some of the rationale was, well, we never dealt in commercial lumbering and product and that kind of thing historically. But again, when you look at the woods and the forests through a realm of energy, all of a sudden our treaty rights light up. We've pushed intertribally with the Forest Service, and they've responded by saying to us as tribes, yeah, if you guys want firewood, go get it. I remember us saying in a meeting with the Forest Service, well, what if I want 5,000 cords of firewood? They said, that'd be wonderful. We'll mark it out for you. The only thing is, you as tribes have to go get it. And so some of the tribes did go after thousands of cords of firewood. But if we expand and even transcend that notion of firewood in terms of cordwood for tribal members, if we go up on economy of scale, there is the possibility to start looking at our treaty resources in a safe, sustainable way, at the possibility of intertribal utility coalitions related to biomass energy production. And I know we did a small survey here in Bad River where we took just a small percentage of just trust land forestry management. And we have a lot of other lands that aren't in trust, but just this small portion of some of the refuse after sustainable forestry management practices showed that we had enough biomass left over to keep the forest floor healthy, but also power a small biomass plant that could, generate enough power for some of our tribal administrative buildings and enterprises. If you fractal that out, similar to what Frank was discussing through utility and maybe through an intertribal collective, when I think of MTERA, organizing some of those talks and visioning opportunities that really transcend what's even currently in the wheel well and the paradigm. I think there's some really amazing possibilities there. I see XL Energy in Ashland, Wisconsin, over off of our western border. They burn biomass and they sell that right back to us and charge our people and our tribe. We could be doing that, and if we did that as one example, as 11 tribes with commonality in terms of ceded territory rights, through that old lens of energy, firewood for cooking, for heating our wigwams, now our homes, and providing energy, for ourselves. I think the sky's the limit, really, and again, that can all be looked at sustainably, keeping ecosystems healthy while also reserving a portion, so we have a place to stand. And just wanted to throw that out there. Miigwech.
Miigwech, Minawab. Thank you. Councilman, would you like to add anything to the two chairmen's comments?
Just, I hear the consistent manner of we all look alike, we all walk alike, we all talk alike. We need to, and Jim and Dupey, I couldn't agree more. We need to share what we know to make the path of others easier. And I have a firm sense of obligation to our fellow tribes to make sure that we walk shoulder to shoulder in parity on these issues. It's important, and there's strength in numbers, and unfortunately, day by day, we have to fight for our sovereignty, and that's a reality I don't see changing anytime soon. So, miigwech for this and for allowing others to hear what you have experienced and what you've come to know. Look forward to more.
Miigwech, miigwech. We'll now take a 10-minute break where we encourage you to step away from your computer, grab a cup of coffee, maybe even a quick lunch, or answer some emails. Before taking break, we ask you to please fill out the poll that should have popped up on everyone's screens. And thank you, and we'll see you in 10 minutes.